Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing fine. Today we're going to start with Chapter 1, Grade 6 CBSE, What, Where, How and When. The topics that we are going to focus in today's session are finding out what happened, what can we know about the past, where did the people live. We'll try to focus on the maps and we'll try to go more into details of the chapter. So let's get started. As the introduction begins, there is a cute girl whose name is Rashida. And once, she was reading the newspaper. While she was reading the newspaper, her eyes fell on a small headlines that said, 100 years ago. And she was quite surprised if life existed that back. So she wanted to know more about the past. That is how we are going to study and learn more about the past. Is there any way? Let's find out. So we are going to first talk about finding out what happened. These two people, Motu and Patlu, they were talking. And Motu said, "Bro, I remember what happened a week ago or maybe what happened yesterday. Because I've got so many sources to get information from. Ranging all the way from radio, I can read the newspaper and I can also refer to the television for the latest updates." And Patlu said, "Who knows what happened long ago, brother? I'm not sure if people would be able to understand what and how did the people live back then." So let's see what we can study today. What can we know about the past? Well, there are many things that we can know. What people ate, what kind of food they had. Did they have chips? Did they have apples? What kind of clothes did they wear? What kind of houses did they make to live in? Apart from that, we can know more about the life of different people. Talk about hunters. We can know more about the farmers. We can know more about the life of these people who were called merchants, like the traders. We can also study more about the life of priests, the herders, who had the cattle, and also more about the musicians, artists, craftsmen, and the scientists. Also, we are going to find out what kind of music did the kids prefer to hear, what kind of plays, what kind of song they were involved in. Moving on, to know all this, we'll have to study where did the people live. So I need all of you to focus on the map here. The map of India that has a very important river that's called Narmada. This river was also known as Riva River. It was also known as Narmada River. It goes in this direction. It flows in this direction. Right? So I'm going to share some extra bit of information. The source of this river is Amarkantak. So it goes and it passes through MP, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. So that is why it's considered the lifeline of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. This happens to be its mouth and this happens to be its source. So several thousand years ago, people started to settle along the banks of the river. Because the banks of the river offered fertile land. And back then, the people that we had, they were known as gatherers, which means they had the talent to hunt food, to gather their food. They knew how to use the vast wealth of the forest, how to collect the roots, how to put to use the fruits, how to use the other forest produce. And apart from making use of the forest, they were also very good at hunting. Let's have a look at some other locations. This map of India offers the location of Kirthar and Suleiman Range in the northwest of India, somewhere in Pakistan. In these areas, we've got evidence that people started the growth of, they started to grow wheat, they started to grow barley some 8,000 years ago. Yes. Even they started to rear the animals. Now I'll show you how does wheat and barley look like. So this is barley, which could be used to feed the animals and also humans. And this is what you call wheat. So we've got evidence of production of wheat or the growth of wheat and barley. Wheat is considered as the staple food worldwide. Apart from Kirthar and Suleiman range, we've also got evidence of rice production. Yes. If you carefully look towards the center of the map of India, we've got Vindhya range right here. We've got Garo hills in Meghalaya and Vindhya range in Madhya Pradesh. So this Vindhya range is another site where we saw the first evidence of rice production. Growth of rice, or what you call it, paddy. So apart from these locations, people, apart from living around the banks of the river, will also study how did people survive around the banks of the river Indus and Ganga. Before that, we need to understand what is a tributary. Let's say this is the river. So there are some smaller rivers that flow into this larger river that contribute their water, that tribute their water along its way. So all these rivers that tribute their water, they are known as tributaries, the small rivers. So there is a very important river that we are going to study. It's River Indus, considered one of the longest river in Asia, because it flows through this Tibet area, rises from this lake that is called Sarovar. Okay, let me write it. Sarovar Lake in Tibet. And it runs through India and then enters Pakistan and has its mouth right here. This river is joined by a lot of tributaries along its way, as you can see. Chenab River, Jhelum River, Beas River, Ravi River, Satluj River, Shlok River, many of its tributaries. So we find the evidence of cities that flourished along the banks of Indus River. They survived around 4,700 years ago from the present. Slowly and steadily, when people started to live along the banks of River Indus, they moved towards the interior of the subcontinent. And there we see the existence of people along the banks of this river Ganga and its tributary Son. Yes, Ganga is the same river that flows to India and goes to Bangladesh and enters Bangladesh. It's flowing in this direction. It gets its water right here from Gangotri Glacier and has its mouth in Bay of Bengal. So along its way, we've got this Son river that contributes its water, and here people started to have their existence around 2,500 years ago. So once people started to settle here, we saw the existence and the coming up of Magda Empire. This is Magda Empire. The rulers were very powerful. They set up a large kingdom. They were very powerful, as you can see. They started to cover the entire subcontinent. And throughout history, we already know that people might have been traveling from one place to the other. They traveled. Mainly, they had to cross Himalayas. They might have to travel through the deserts, might have to cross the rivers or make their journey through the seas. It might have been very difficult to cross all these areas, but it was never impossible. Now they were so curious to go from one place to the other, they might be having some reason to it. Yes. The reason this question is asked, why do the people travel from one part of the subcontinent to another? They moved from one part of the subcontinent to the other in search of livelihood, in order to escape some natural disaster. And they also had that spirit of adventure. They wanted to discover or conquer new areas, or maybe discover new places, or maybe give religious lessons to other people. So, but they were driven by different spirits that we've all read here. In order to travel from one place to other, they either used ships to carry their stuff, or they traveled in caravans. It's a movable, motorable vehicle which we use to travel from one place to another. It's like a trailer, a road vehicle, in which you have, which is basically used by the actress nowadays, where you can have a tent to live in, where you can sleep comfortably. So we've answered many questions. How people traveled, why people traveled, and as they traveled, scaled up the mountains, crossed the sea to move to different locations. Definitely, they might have shared their culture. They might have enriched their culture. And India has been blessed with the same idea. During the course of history, we learned from different people how to carve the stone. Can you see all these designs? We've learned how to basically work and come up with different designs on the stones. We've learned how to carve them. So this, music, food, and several other things we've learned by the exchange of ideas. So thank you very much. We'll continue with the next session where we'll talk about the next part of the session. We'll start from the names of the land and continue. In case you like the session, please hit the subscribe button and leave your comment down there. Thank you. I hope to see you soon.